G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome everyone. Today I'm interviewing Chance Weber from Agile & Co. He's based in St. Louis, USA. Thanks for your time today, Chance.
Thank you.
Let's start with how we know each other. So Emma from Podcast Connection reached out and thought you might be a good guest to come on the cast.
Yes, I appreciate her very much.
Tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
So we are a full service digital marketing agency. So everything from these trendy acronyms that we've all heard over the last decade have got very popular: search engine optimization, paid Google ads, Facebook ads, all the way to landing pages, website development, and all the fun consultation and strategic work that goes behind all that. So we are a full service digital marketing agency. So we don't necessarily just do, these days you see like just social media agencies. To me, that is not beneficial for a business. They need to have somebody that can control the whole ship, not just a piece of it. So we pride ourselves on being a full service digital marketing agency.
That's great. Very much needed services these days. And I'm guessing you would have had quite a bump after, thanks to COVID as well. I've seen a lot of online business or digital businesses, really grow in that last 2 years.
Yeah. It's wild. I think I've seen both. So I've seen companies that clearly didn't have a very stable client base and that maybe weren't offering an amazing service. So when shit hit the fan, right? And they were like, man, we don't have the revenue anymore. They were like the first thing to cut, the not so successful agencies. And then the successful agencies that were able to weather that storm absolutely exploded. I mean, 2021 was a better year for us than 2020, but 2020 and that year through the middle of all this was the best year that we'd ever had prior to last year. So yeah, we absolutely exploded. We were one of those that benefited from a pandemic, which is crazy to say.
That's great. And it's counterintuitive, but a lot of marketing advice I've heard is in times of recessions and hard economic times, you don't cut your marketing budget, you actually double it, because most of your ill-informed competitors will cut their marketing budget, and it's a great opportunity for you to steal market share.
Absolutely. That is true. And we did have clients that did both. I mean, we did lose $1 million in revenue in 48 hours. And we just got it all back within 30 days. Yep. But we did. We had several clients that doubled down and they saw it as an opportunity. And the ground that they made up was just incredible. So that's true. I believe in that to this day.
How did you start out?
So started out, I was in a job that I hated. I was a recruiter. I was recruiting in financial services.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was a horrible job for me. I mean, God bless the people that do it. Somebody's got to do it, right? Yeah. But I was in this industry, and I actually interviewed for a job to do sales for a digital marketing company. And I was talking to these guys. It was a very loose interview. It was like a friend of a friend from college, kind of knew the guy, had got the company off the ground. There's only a couple of people running it, and the talks got pretty serious. And I kind of reached a point where, I mean, I'll be honest with you, man, I was in a terrible place in life. 483 credit score. I had not been successful really in anything I'd done. I was okay. I hated everything that I was doing up to that point. Went to college, was a financial advisor, then recruiting in financial services. I was miserable. I just wasn't happy. I couldn't find a passion. 483 credit score, living week to week, paycheck to paycheck, just trying to put food on the table, literally, and avoid and pay car payments. Car got repossessed like a year before this. That's how bad it was for me. And was kind of in a rock bottom spot, started interviewing for this job. And I was like, why, what do I have to lose?
Yeah. Fuck
like
it.
I'm 29 years old. Fuck it. Like, let's go for it. Like, let's actually try to do something. So at that point, I reached out to a former, a college roommate who was out in Los Angeles. I was in Chicago, and I pitched him the idea. He had a real estate business. So we kind of had some business experience where I had zero, and I felt like I needed him. So I reached out to him, pitched him. We decided to start the company. First book I ever read about this was SEO for Dummies. Literally, that's how I learned how to do SEO, which is hilarious because how you do SEO now in the algorithm has nothing to do with what it did, at that point 12 years ago. Yeah. So either way, that's how we started the company. He went to his mommy and daddy, and I went to my mommy and daddy, and we both got $15,000 cash to start a company with essentially 30 grand. So that's what we bootstrapped it with out of the gate. My parents put a lien on my car. Yep. That was my collateral. My parents, I don't come from any wealth. I come from very low middle-class families. I am the guy that's changing the trajectory of the family tree. And they put a lien essentially on my vehicle to lend me the money.
Yep. And so you were 30 when you started. What year was that?
Well, I'm almost 40 this year, so it would have been 2012. So the process, the ball was rolling in 2011, and then 2012 was formal.
Great. And do you have some key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth of the business over those 10 years?
Yeah. So in 2013, our first full year, we did $304,000 in revenue at a 14% bottom line. So, a lot of small businesses would say, well, damn, you got lucky, like we kind of hit the ground running, and we did. I mean, a decade ago, it seems like it was so long ago, but it really wasn't. But back then, phone books were still something, and like it wasn't Google. Google was a thing. Don't get me wrong. Like, obviously the internet was real. I'm not trying to act like 30 years ago, but digital marketing was still coming to fruition, especially for small brick and mortar type of businesses. And that's where we made our living out of the gate. Was acquiring them, or not acquiring them, but acquiring their business. And working with brick and mortar, St. Louis based businesses in our backyard. That's how we got off the ground.
Great. How big St. Louis? What's the population there?
Man, I don't even know. It's small. It's a small city, probably 2-3 million, I'm guessing, off the top of my head. Okay. So it's not huge.
Yep. And any other key numbers to illustrate the growth over that 10 years?
Well, the growth over the 10 years. So we did $304,000, 14% profit margin in our first year. And now we are on the verge of going from multiple 7 figures to hopefully an 8-figure company. I don't know if we'll hit it this year. Might be next year thing. But even more importantly, everybody talks about revenue numbers. Who gives a shit? No. Like, I hear $100 million companies and they have $1 million bottom line. I'm like, well, that's not really that cool. But we are doing a 30+% net margin on that revenue. So margins have more than doubled over the years, and obviously revenue is exponentially higher.
Fantastic. Well done. And what about full-time equivalents? Is just yourself and your business partner that started out?
Yep. So right now, the business partner's no longer with us. I'm sure we're going to get to that here.
Get to that.
That's the real heat of today's conversation. But yeah, so there's 12 of us total, including myself.
Yep.
So we are a boutique agency. I think that's another thing that's made us different. I have badasses. Mm-hmm. I can honestly tell you, I don't have a B player on my team. There are agencies with our revenue that are 4 times the size of us from a personnel standpoint. So we are a lean, mean machine, and that's why our profit margins are so high. Yeah. But I've got kick-ass people that they're not scared to work and get their hands dirty. And I've been very fortunate. It hasn't always been all rainbows and unicorns. I've had to terminate a lot of people to get this crew, but the team I'm rolling with right now is by far the best it's ever been.
Yeah, great. That's a really good point, because I think there's a massive chasm between an A and a B player. And unless you get really good at recruitment, getting those A players on the bus and kicking off the shitty B and C players, you're just in a world of pain for many years and stymieing your growth.
Absolutely. Yep.
When was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
That is such a loaded question. Life's a funny thing, and I'm sure you can relate to this because I've done my homework on you. You've had a pretty successful track record yourself. But, when I look at certain things, I came from a very low to middle class family. And I remember hearing one year that my dad made $70,000. He worked for a water company, blue collar job. And to him, like, he had made a lot of money. He'd made it, and he'd had to work overtime to do that. And I remember in the business when I made $70,000 going, I've done it. And that was just the limiting beliefs that had been instilled in my head since I was a little kid. And then I'm looking at my bank account and what I have, and I'm like, I haven't done shit. Right.
Yep.
And then it's like just 6 figures. That was the next thing for me, mentally, was 6 figures. And then I remember getting to 6 figures and going, I really don't have anything that I want beyond what I had at 70. And then I remember, a few $100,000, $500,000, and then $100,000 a month, getting to that point. And look, it used to be all money based for me. Like, success was money. It was about driving exotic cars. And, I'm sitting in my beautiful lake house right now on a Thursday, I've got a $500,000 boat down on the lake and $1 million home and all this fun stuff, lake house. This isn't even where I live. It used to be about all that for me. Now success has really changed for me. Success for me is now about freedom.
Yep.
It's about my time. I have a beautiful wife. I have a 2-year-old and 5-year-old daughters. To me, it's about being more present with them. It's about, living my life. I feel like I've got past the point of having a whole lot to prove. I still have a whole lot more that I want to do. Don't get that twisted, right? But to me now, success has changed. It's about freedom, and it's about setting up generational wealth to change my family tree forever.
Yeah.
Because I am that unicorn. There has never been anybody before me. So those are my focuses now, and that's what success looks like today. But it has most certainly changed.
That's great. Yeah, that was the next question. What does success look like to you? Perfect question for you. Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business?
Yeah, gosh, it seems like such a simple question, but it's so huge. Figure out what you can do differently than your competitors. And I'll share a very quick story. I had a call with a guy this morning that has a laser printing apparel company. Okay. Laser printing apparel companies are a dime a dozen here. I'm sure they are there as well. I mean, they're just huge. And there's some of them that are 50, 100, $500 million companies. And that's all that they do. You cannot outspend them online. You can't, right? You cannot outspend. If you're a startup or a sub $5 million company, you're never going to play the game with the big boys. So you can try to pick and choose your battles online. But what I did was completely pivoted the conversation and try to be a resource to him. He wasn't a good fit for me. Could I spend his money? Could I go run ads? Yeah. What I told him to do was, how many of your competitors, he's in a small area, a small city, per se, right? I said, how many of your competitors are handwriting letters to the high school basketball coach that needs the t-shirts that you print, to the blue collar plumbing company that has 25 employees? So put their logo on a t-shirt, put it on a piece of paper, handwrite them a note, letting them know you're trying to expose your brand and your business in the local market. And who's doing that in 2022? Nobody. Everybody just wants to run the damn ads. Mm-hmm. So find a way to be different, right? Go back to, if you need to, old school grassroots efforts. And I know that's not a sales pitch to, hey, come hire me, a digital marketing agency. But look, man, there's not one way to market. And I told him, I laid out a whole entire sequence. Put a flyer on the windshield, send an email, then send the handwritten, image of their t-shirt with their logo on it, handwritten, sign it yourself, then send a fourth email. Like, I built out like a workflow for him that I can't make $1 on. He's never going to be my client. I just try to help him, but figure out a way to make yourself different. Like, that would be the biggest thing that I would say. How I operate my entire agency is different than the norm that's out there. And I think that's one reason that we've had so much success.
Yeah, great. And on that point, that's a great idea and advice you've given that guy. That I read a book a few years ago. I think it was written in the 80s, and you may have read it, Guerrilla Marketing.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with it.
Yeah. So it's
been a long time ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've read it.
There's 4 or 5 editions now. I think the guy's passed away, but it's a great book. Yep. Heaps of ideas like those that you've just had then to have a different approach to marketing.
Yep.
So funding your business, you started with $30,000 between the two of you. You had taken any other investors on, or?
Zero. We literally got off the ground. So it's funny that job that I told you that I hated, God bless my boss. I told him what I was doing. I was honest with him. We had a good relationship, and he terminated me for a reason in which I could still collect unemployment.
Yeah.
So I milked that small, I don't even know what it was, $1,000 a month paycheck. Plus, we got the company off the ground, and that's how we made it. I mean, I think I don't know, I made like $20,000 my first year in business. Truly like living as low as you can live.
If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
I would, and I'll tell you why. My rule of thumb is 1 out of 20 digital marketing agencies actually know what the hell they're doing. I get a hold of work, and my team does evaluations weekly that just blows my mind. We got a hold of an account a couple of weeks ago. They'd run $40,000 worth of Facebook ads and had no conversion tracking set up. Ugh. They had no idea what their money had went towards. They had no idea how many leads that they'd received. They had no idea how to quantify anything.
That's
they literally
basic. I mean, I had a guest on the other week who said
so basic.
they had I think they were a digital agency as well, and they said they'd come across a client who was spending 70 million a year on digital ads, didn't even know what their CAC was, their customer acquisition costs, and all the key metrics in your funnel, LTV.
It's unbelievable.
Oh.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, if you don't understand just basic, look, you don't have to be a digital marketer, but just 101 concept of business, like you need to know what your cost per acquisition is. You need to know what your cost per lead is. You need to understand these things. It ain't have conversion tracking. The other one that I see constantly in the search engine optimization world is, businesses that or agencies, I'm sorry, that talk about monitoring. They're monitoring your SEO. Pardon my language, but what the fuck are you monitoring?
Exactly.
You're paying me to do a service, not to monitor my service.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing to me. And we see these things constantly. I mean, I've got endless amounts of these stories. I've had clients for 6, 7, 8 years at this point, that we've been doing search engine optimization for, and we took them from agencies just like that. So my point is to come back and bring this full circle to answer your question. Hell yes, I would jump into it. You got to learn the art, but there's so many shit bags out there.
Yeah.
There's so many terrible agencies just stealing small. It makes my blood boil. Like, this is one of those things, like I can punch things over it. And it's not about me not having that business. It's not personal. I feel bad for the business owner. I feel bad for the marketing manager that hired this agency that now looks like an absolute dumbass to, senior management of a company. I feel bad for these businesses, and it really bothers me. But yes, there is a massive amount of opportunity. Hell yes, I would jump back into it. Just make sure you know what the hell you're doing. I know that sounds like common sense, but you need to know what you're doing.
Not always common practice. Do you want to circle back and close out that $40,000 example, that client you took on?
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, what was that?
Oh, do you want to just close out that? You started giving the example.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm sorry. So yes, we'll go back and close that out. So they were a franchisee. So they were a kitchen, like a fresh made. I don't know if y'all have these in Australia, but they were a pre-made, like fresh weekly made meals. Okay. And they're healthy, like they're macro friendly. And we essentially turned that into a deal that got us the whole entire franchise deal that has 27 locations. Wow. So not only did we get that franchise location, they essentially went to corporate and said, hey, look, we've been working with somebody really, really bad. These guys are really, really good. Corporate said, hey, come in. So we pitched on a corporate level, and now we have not only the corporate business, but all 27 locations that they have up and running.
No,
so it was worth it. Absolutely.
This might be the one where we jump into the ex-business partner. Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
No doubt. Late 2016 into early 2017, the business partner that I started my company with, again, was a college friend, a guy that I looked up to, being very smart, had business savvy. I was still, to this day, say that he's a very smart guy. He's brilliant, very, very smart. Work ethics, discipline, anything that it actually takes to run a business, we were not on the same page. Right. Struggled. We were fighting out of the gate. We had physical altercations. We had many verbal altercations. Look, man, I don't fight people. I'll be 40 years old in a couple of months. I didn't fight people at 30. I don't fight people at 40. Like, fighting is not like my thing. Yeah. Okay. We had physical altercations. It just got to a point where I felt like it was a major twist, because at that point we were doing like $800,000 in revenue. And I felt like we were doing something, right? And I was caught between this rock and a hard spot where I'm going, okay, we're having success. Like, if you look at the P&L, this company is growing, but I am miserable. And this guy is not helping me go anywhere. He's holding me back. Long story short, we did not have a buy-sell agreement.
Very common mistake. Yep.
Very common mistake.
Yep. So you didn't have a shareholders agreement?
We had an operating agreement. It was very loose, but we didn't have a buy-sell agreement, no shareholders agreement. And we basically got to a point where every single client knew me and not a single client knew him, because he didn't do shit and I did everything. Okay.
Yep.
So we got to that point, and that was my leverage ultimately. So when push came to shove, we settled. I paid him out a few $100,000 just to basically go away. At the closing, our attorneys actually had to separate us. It got that heated. I tried to come across the table. Just this guy, man, just a first class piece of work. That's the best way I can explain it. But it was horrible, and I'll tell you, I got gray hair from it. I lost years of my life. Like, people talk about a marital divorce. Knock on wood, I haven't been through one of those. I love my wife, but I don't know how much worse it could really be than this. This is a divorce, right? It was a divorce. We were 50-50 owners of a company. And since then, I mean, the company has just exploded. I mean, we're 10x what we were then, right? So just it absolutely exploded. It was the best thing that ever happened to me, but it was a horrible time, horrible experience.
And did you raise that idea of him fucking off?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. We tried to talk about it. We never saw eye to eye. In his mind, he worked his ass off. Dude, come to work at 11 a.m. and leave at 5. And that was working his ass off. When our employees are there every morning at 8 o'clock, I'm there every morning at 8 o'clock. Like, it just no logic or concept of, leading and leadership in general, and doing what you need to do and doing the ugly things, So yeah, it was beyond repair very quickly.
What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
Area that I've had to work on the most, believe it or not, this kind of sounds silly, is just believing in myself. I wake up sometimes and I'm like, I'm trying to buy a Ferrari 488 right now, and I've got a guy that's helping me with it. I hired him, consultant, just to buy exotic cars, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Who am I? It's almost this time, like, I go through these times where I almost feel like a fraud.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, how did I get here? I couldn't eat. I had a 483 credit score. I couldn't even get groceries. And now I'm, looking at $400,000 cars, and so a lot of it, my biggest thing has been working on me. It's a lot of personal development, getting over self-limiting beliefs. Like, I shared the $70,000 a year story from my father, like, understanding, like, that's not great. That's not what I want. Like, I'm not there. I'm not him. I'm somebody different, and God bless him. That's nothing bad about him, but that's not who I am. That's not where I'm going. That's not what I'm trying to accomplish. So a lot of self-limiting beliefs, having that self-confidence, and I still fight some of those demons right now. I'm getting speaking gigs where I'm getting speaking gigs where I'm getting thousands of dollars to step on the stage. And I'm like, who the hell would want me to talk? Like, who the hell wants me to talk? Like, I'm honored to be on your podcast today. Why the hell do you have me here? So it's just looking at things like that, getting over my own self-limiting beliefs has been my biggest struggle of growth.
What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
So I will say it's what I've enjoyed the least are the ups and downs, the roller coaster of it, right? But I've also learned how to handle that. Now I embrace it. Now I look at adversity as a challenge, and a lot of that's just experience, man. When you go through what I did in that divorce, and you go through a pandemic where you watch $1 million just fall off your P&L in 48 hours, when you watch, $1 million for me is a lot of money, right? So when you look at things like that, it's like battle wounds, right? It's like scar tissue. So that's the part that I enjoy the least about it, but it's also what's made me who I am and a way better entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I mean, now it's like I see what's coming and I'm like, I've got this. It's not as bad as what I've been through. It's not bootstrapping a company with $30,000 in the bank that's immediately going out every day. Like, if I've done that, I can do this, right? So, but the roller coaster is still, the emotional roller coaster of it, and stabilizing that is still the hardest part of it, in my opinion.
What do you love most about growing a small business?
The people. I love growing people. We talked about, you asked me previously about, what does success look like? And your motives change, right? Success was all about money for me, and proving something, and, cars and boats and stuff and all material shit that's really not that important once you have it, right? I love growing my people. I love taking a 22-year-old kid and giving them $60,000 a year, which is more than they get right now, a lot of them, and identifying a nice talent in somebody and growing them. And then having them make 70, 80, 100, 120, 150, $200,000, watching them go take that dream vacation to Europe, knowing I created that for them. Like, I grew that person. So I get so much joy out of taking what I would call a kid, right? A young adult, and grooming them and growing their life and being the one that's helped guide that ship. That's the awesome thing for me. And I also, on more of the business side, I love growing businesses, man. Like my favorite phone call or email to get is, hey dude, too many leads. We can't keep up. Too many sales. Like shut it down. Like our inventory's out. Shut that shit down.
Yeah.
Hey, we don't have the sales staff. Can you pause this until we can hire a couple more people? I laugh. It's a problem, right? Like that is a problem for those businesses. I love that call. I love that email. I love growing companies. Like that's what you're hiring me to do. So I get internal joy out of that as well.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
Not being a bitch. Honestly, man, that's the best way I can explain it. Like I look back at the early years and I had so many, demons of who I had become at that time and so many bad habits that had been developed. And I think just getting mentally stronger and getting the mindset of I'm not going to quit. Whatever happens, like I'm not going to quit. That most certainly has been, from that standpoint, the biggest change for sure.
What is the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Discipline.
Yeah.
Very simple. It's discipline, man. And identify your weaknesses and build discipline around that. If you're not a good salesperson, study how to be a good salesperson, or realize I can't be a good sales guy. I need a sales guy. Yep. But discipline is everything. Understand your business. Do whatever you have to do, but you have to have discipline specifically around your weaknesses. Mm-hmm. That's the key. Like everybody just wants to gravitate towards what they're great at. You need discipline around what you suck at, because that's what's going to be what kills you, right? Not your strengths, it could be your weaknesses. So I'd say discipline, no doubt.
Want to become the best manager you can be? Check out our Kick-Ass Manager course at growasmallbusiness.com. Do the course and add your fellow managers for no extra cost. Join the 30%. 70% of people quit their job because of their manager. Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
Yeah, I've completely changed the way that I hire altogether over the last 3 to 4 years. I do not look at resumes hardly at all anymore. So I put job ads out just like everybody else. And this is a true story. Hopefully nobody that's ever going to apply to work for me hears this, but I put spelling and grammar errors in the job description.
Genius. I love it.
In my business, attention to detail is everything.
Yep.
You fuck up one bit on one ad, you just burnt through some cash.
Yep.
You have typos in your emails, you look like a dipshit. I can't have you representing. Yeah.
Emails and CVs. If they haven't taken the time for their CV, especially to get a copywriter to review it, or an editor, if they're not that good with grammar, geez, you know, it's just
100%. But I'm at a point where I don't even really read the resume. So I put up the job description with spelling and grammar errors. And then at the very bottom of it, I note, do not apply through this job board. If you want to apply for this job, please send your resume to careers@agileandco.com. Put your favorite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle in the title and outline every spelling and grammar error in this job description. Anybody that does not apply this way will not be considered. So I immediately filter 95% of applicants. 95% of applicants are done. So I've already got down to 5%. And then those people, I pretty much bring every single one of them on site. I do not hire off of a resume. I hire off of skills, right? I hire off of communication skills, people skills, organization skills. I can't teach those things. I can teach you how to run an ad campaign. I can teach you strategy. These things take time, but they can be trained. If you can't communicate worth a shit to people, I don't know how to make you communicate well. So I hire off of intangibles, not tangibles, if that makes sense. Definitely. So I've really overhauled my process over the last 4 years. My hit rate's been way higher. I've hired so many shitbags and had a revolving door, just like every other entrepreneur out there, right? People know work ethic, talk a big game, they get in there. It's just, I've learned. And since making these changes and hiring people based off of people, not the piece of paper, everything has changed.
And how did you overhaul that recruitment process? Was it, from reading something or talking to other business owners, or just an idea?
No, it was a combination of a couple of things. I talked to another business owner that put on the bottom of the resume to apply through an email address and not through the job board. And then I took that concept and I was like, man, that's genius, because there's so many people that just click, right? They're like, Oh, I have a marketing degree. Click submit to the marketing company, submit to the marketing company, submit to the marketing company. They don't read shit. They don't even know what your company is. They don't know what you do. They don't know what you're looking for. They're just submitting. So that took out that funnel. But then I just took it a step further. And I'm like, what's really important to me? And all that I can tell, if they're sitting in their home and I'm coming to my office, I can't see them. I can't talk to them. This is electronic, was the attention to detail. And that was the thing that I could scrub. So I added that piece to it. But it did partially come from a collaboration with another traditional marketing owner, agency owner.
What are some things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
Oh, man, this is something I feel like I've gotten pretty good at. So I'm not a big culture guy. I'm not a big thoughtful guy. Okay. But one thing that I changed about 2 years ago was I started having one-on-one meetings with every single person on my team bi-monthly.
Yeah.
And I would sit down with them and I would document everything we talked about. And I still do it to this day. I have a key employee that I'm letting buy into the agency. She will be a minority owner here in April. She's going to start running this for me. But I really dig into what they value and what's important to them. So I try to reward them with things that they care about. Not everybody's money driven.
Yep.
I've sent people on vacations. I paid for their vacations. I paid for their flights because that's what success looks like to them.
Yep.
So really setting these one-on-one meetings and getting into what fuels them and what makes them happy, and then giving them more of that, rewarding them with more of that when they perform well. Because that's corporate world. That's what I hate about corporate world. Everybody goes in the same damn box. Well, not everybody's the same. Some people just want freedom. They don't want a manager. They don't want to be micromanaged. They don't care if they get a $5,000 raise. Just stay off their back. That's what they want. Everybody's different. So I really try to dig into that and individualize. I know this is going to be harder as we scale, right? But I don't have visions of having 100-person company. So it's something, a core competency that I want to keep in my company for the long run.
Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
I don't believe in it. That's the short answer.
Yep.
I don't believe in it. There is no such thing as balance. Look, I have hobbies. I'm an outdoorsman. I love to be outside. I love firearms. I love to boat. I'm at my lake house. I have hobbies. I have a lot of things that I do. Okay. I have young kids. I love to do things with them, go on vacation. I have a life, right? I'm trying to get more of a life right now. That, like we talked about success. That's the next big piece for me, but I don't believe in balance. I mean, these things are the worst and best thing in the world for us, right? These cell phones, right?
Yep.
Yes. But I mean, look, I'm never not working.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I do understand, like, sometimes obviously you need to let go a little bit and set the phone down for a little while, but I don't believe in balance per se. If you're an entrepreneur, you signed up for this. Yeah. Either you can do it or you can't. You're cut from the right cloth or you're not.
How much professional development have you invested in yourself?
Hundreds of thousands of dollars. I have personal coaches. I've had mentors. I've had business groups. I right now have essentially like a professional life coach. His name is Ben Human. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Alabama football is a huge program here in the United States. They've won multiple national titles. He is the performance coach for that football team. He costs me tens of thousands of dollars a year. I talk to him bi-weekly. He helps me with strategy. I have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on personal development, and there is no questions asked that I would be nowhere near where I'm at if I wouldn't have wrote those checks.
Yep.
No questions asked.
Great. And we spoke before we hit record, you don't have a board of directors or advisors. So we're on to our final 5 questions. Chance, what do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
Having an attitude of, it doesn't matter how bad it is, you're not going to quit. Attitude is so much of it. I mean, staying positive and staying focused and having a not quit attitude is by far the most important thing.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
Atomic Habits.
I've read that. It's a good one.
Good one. Very good one. Any
great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
So there's an older podcast that I listen to a lot more. It was called the MFCEO. Andy Frisella. It was a top business development podcast in the US for years and years and years. He's pivoted out. He's actually a mentor of mine. He's pivoted out. He has a different podcast now. But I mean, back in those days when he had that podcast, and this was as recently as probably 2 or 3 years ago, that is the most raw, down to earth, getting in the trenches, real business, shit that you can find on the internet, in my opinion. And he's very colorful. He's very abrasive. Yep. He is not for everybody. Yep. I gravitate towards people like that. But the MF CEO was the name of it. That was the podcast that was most by far impactful on me as far as business is concerned. I've learned a ton from him, still continue to. I'm in his business group. It is very expensive to be in it, and it has been worth every single dollar.
Right. I'm going to look that old podcast up and start listening to it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
Have a great CPA. That's such an important thing. Early in the game, I didn't understand numbers that well. Like, I'm a numbers geek now. I can tell you what's going on in my P&L every single week, month. I know everything that's going on. It's such an underrated thing. Like, people try to, kind of buy a cheap CPA or, do it on their own. Don't. Like, understand your business, understand how you're making money and how you make more of it, right? Like, it's not about your revenue. Nobody cares if you do $100 million in revenue. What's your bottom line? That's the number we should talk about. So a badass CPA will be worth their weight in gold. They will save you way more money than you paid them.
Totally. I've had a shit ton of accountants of now 22 years in business, 14 businesses in 3 countries, nearly 30 business partners, and worked with a lot of professionals, lawyers, accountants. And it's hard to find a good one. But as soon as you do, hold on to them. Accountants are, like you said, well worth their weight in gold if they're good.
Absolutely.
Finally, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
Kind of goes back to question number 1, man. Don't fucking quit. Like, there's so many times, it sounds so cliche, but there's so many times that I wanted to quit. So many times. The divorce, I wanted to quit. I wake up now and I'm like, I just retired my in-laws. I'm moving them to help with my family. I bought them a house. I'm paying them a salary to move here. I finally broke down and hired an executive assistant that's going to cost a lot of money. I'm doing all these things now, and I'm like, I'm feeling this next wave of pressure. And I'm going, man, I could exit this thing right now, right? Like, I'm a millionaire. Who cares, right? But I could sell this thing for millions of dollars right now, and I could retire. I'll be 40 years old in August. I could be done. I would be miserable. Like, the day after it sold, I'd be miserable. I can't. I have to keep going. But going back to it, it would be just don't quit. Don't even think of it as being an option. Like, never. Like, that's what shifted and changed for me. But it was after going through major shit that I got there. If I would have had a more clear vision from the beginning of, this is my baby, this is my thing, this is my life, don't quit. I'm never going to quit. I don't care what happens, period. I will literally die for this company and the success of it. That would be what I would change. I would have that attitude from day one.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Chance. I think the audience got a shit ton of value out of your journey and what you've shared with us. Congratulations to you on the growth and now your team, not so much your ex-business partner, but going from 2 FTE to 12. It must feel good, obviously, the success you've got now, knowing, you exited about halfway through the journey, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It feels great. Thank you so much for having me, man. This has been awesome. Love this. Great questions.
Thanks. That's it. Thanks for listening. Please leave a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. It means more small business owners will find our cast and help people with their business growth journey.